Hey guys, welcome to another episode. So I've got two videos on pruning to a modified central leader where I prune my apple trees to that, and I'll put them up in the cards here. But in this video I just want to focus on explaining exactly what it is in order to keep the pruning videos down to a more manageable length. In order to fully understand the modified central leader though, there are two common pruning styles that it takes inspiration from. So the first one is the open center, or also called a vase shape, sometimes referred to as a bowl shape. And I don't personally have a tree that's pruned to that style, but this one portrays it pretty well if you just don't imagine this central leader to be here. So you would start off by pruning down your tree when you get it fresh from the nursery. You'd prune it down to about 1/2 meter, which is about 2 foot. And then you would get between 3 and 5 branches coming off of the cut point. So imagine I would prune it down to this, and I would get 3 to 5 branches. So I've got 3 right here, but you could probably have another one somewhere along here, maybe another one that goes this way. All these 3 to 5 branches would ideally come in their own way, like north, east, south, west, something like that, to give them their own little pocket of light and give them enough space from the other one, so they all have their own little area that they can grow into. From here, these branches would grow up, and each one of these branches would be your main scaffolds, or your main leaders, or whatever, however you want to call them, for that style. Now this creates, just like the name implies, it creates really good an open center here, so light can penetrate it very easily. You get a lot of airflow, which will help to prevent things like fungus and things like that. So it has a lot of benefits, but the main downside to an open center or vase shape is that all these branches are coming off really close to one another. So if you get a lot of snow, but even a lot of fruit load on one of these branches, that can actually snap the branch because there's just a lot of weight that's all in one centralized location. Ideally, these branches will be more spaced out over the trunk in order to distribute that weight load. So the second pruning style is called a central leader, which is of course what a modified central leader takes a lot of cues from. And in a central leader you have your main trunk that grows up, and then have a bunch of side branches that provide your main scaffolds, and that's where all your fruit's going to be on. Now in this case it's a pear tree, and most of these branches are its own variety, so that's why they are like this. But the downside to a central leader a lot of times is that they get really tall very quickly, because there's a hormone that's responsible for that, for all that apical growth, which is called auxin. And in a conventional central leader, all that auxin goes to a single trunk, so that's all just shooting straight up. A modified central leader tries to distribute that auxin to help to control the top growth of the tree a little bit better. Alright, so now to the main event, the modified central leader. Now I want to mention too that the open center or vase shape is most commonly used on stone fruit, and the central leader is most commonly used on apple trees and pear trees because they have a lot of auxin and they like shooting up that central leader. So that's why the different trees are pruned differently, I guess. But I want to try to use the modified central leader for both stone fruit and apples and pears if I could. So once I do get like a peach, nectarine, apricot or something like that, I'll try to apply the modified central leader to it as well and see how that goes. So here's a look at the entire tree. I really like the shape and the style of this tree. It's pretty much perfect and exactly what I want. Now I usually like to start pruning at the top of the tree, but for the sake of explaining this, I'm actually going to start at the bottom, because really one of the first things that you want to establish are your main scaffolds, which your main scaffolds are going to be over the course of the trunk, so somewhere along the middle there, you're going to get your main scaffolds. Now these can be spaced apart more than what they are here, but currently for this tree I have essentially a bud space in between. So say this branch here, this branch got pruned, and there's another branch here. On the back I pruned a branch, and there's another branch here. So there's a bud space in between all of these branches here. There was a branch somewhere, I believe back here, and then there's another branch here. So you got a bud space in between all these branches, As I go along, I might add another bud space in between, like I might end up having 2 or 3 bud spaces in between as the tree gets taller. But I would definitely recommend having at least 1 bud space in between each branch if you can. So, your main scaffolds, you're going to have anywhere from, well, about 3 to 5 again, with your regular central leader or even an open center. But you're going to have all these branches come out, have their own space. So here you can see, this one grows its own direction. The one behind here grows its own direction. This one up here grows its own direction. You want to make sure that they all have their own spot of light where they can grow and do their thing. Then they're going to slowly arch up, ideally. This happens a lot in apples and pears. And as they grow up, they're going to share the oxen between your main leader and all of these main scaffolds. The big difference between a modified central leader and a central leader is that all your main scaffolds are going to go up and essentially all become your vertical leaders. They're all going to share the oxen. You can see that this one is already pretty tall. It's already about as tall as the main leader here, and that's what I want. This one will catch up pretty soon as well. Same thing with this one over here. So that's what you want. You want to distribute that oxen amongst all of your main scaffolds and the central leader. That's in an effort to keep it a little bit more short and manageable. So once you've determined where your main scaffold is going to be, then you're going to go to the top of the tree. So I've got another branch down here, but I want to go up a little bit so you won't be able to see that branch. Okay? So essentially what you're going to do at the top here is the same thing you're going to be doing down below. You're going to have a second set of main scaffolds at the top of your tree. Now, and this is done for the same reason as it is down below, as all the main scaffold branches are going to go up and share the oxen with your central leader. This second set of scaffolds is going to do the exact same thing. They're going to go up, just like with your central leader here, which is that top branch there, and they're all going to share the oxen. And again, the reason why you do this is so that you have branches that you can prune them down to, that you can replace the leader with, but also for them to all share the oxen. To keep your tree at a more manageable height, it's going to be much more natural, and you're not going to be wasting as much of the growth every year in pruning, having to prune that off like you would with a central leader. So just like down below, you ideally have a bud space in between every single main scaffold branch, which in between these two I happen to not have that. So ideally that's something that I work towards, where I replace one of these branches with one where you have more space in between. Maybe one of these other branches will develop and that'll give me that in the future. Alright, so that pretty much covers it for the modified central leader. Hopefully I explained it well to you, but I'll quickly recap it just in case. So the first thing you're going to do is have your main set of scaffolds. That's going to be somewhere along the middle of the tree. I ended up doing it maybe like 1/2 meter up, 2 foot up, something like that. But this can be at any height that's comfortable to you. You have anywhere from 3 to 5 branches. These 3 to 5 branches have to have their own space. So for north, east, southwest, for instance. But as long as they have their own little spot of light that they could grow into, that's really all you're trying to do. Then these branches will slowly arch up. Now with apples and pears, this will happen naturally. They're naturally going to want to do that. Hopefully with peaches and stone fruit, that'll happen as well, but that's something I'll have to do for myself in order to see what happens. So once you have your main set of scaffolds established, then you want to set up your second set of scaffolds at the top of your tree. Now this is done again so that you can replace a leader, like right in here. I could take this out. If I wanted them to be lower, I could then prune it down to a bud that faces a favorable direction. This one, for instance, because it grows in towards the center. That's something I could do to maintain the height. And you can do this every year. You just keep replacing that leader in order to maintain the height. And then all the branches that now you've established, all sharing oxen, that'll help reduce the size of your apple or pear tree. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tot de volgende keer. While filming and explaining this, I actually realized that I had two branches that grow right over the top of one another, and I don't need both of them, and I don't have a lot of space in between the branches up here, so I'm actually going to replace this branch with the one that's right below it, which is growing in a similar area. So I might as well do that. I'll see you in the next one. Tot de volgende keer.